Hi, everyone. Okay, we're live. Hi, Olga. How are you doing?
Hello.
It's
I'm
good
good.
to see
How are
you
you?
this morning. Surprise, it's not Emma Sale, it's me as the sister understudy, but you're not here to see me this morning. You're here to see the incredible Olga Miler. Thank you for joining us, Olga. We're here to talk about money and how to get financially fit. So I'm really looking forward to this session. For those of you that aren't familiar with Olga, she is a finance powerhouse. She's worked in the top tier institutions. She's amazing. She's an expert. And not only did she work there and was a huge success, she also made them change various products when she saw that they weren't serving women properly. So she's an innovator as well. She is a trustee for the Cherie Blair Foundation, championing women in business all over the world. And she is co-founder of SmartPurse. So rather than have me mangle what SmartPurse is and try to explain it, can I ask you, Olga, to give us a nutshell explanation of what SmartPurse is and how it can help us all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. So yeah, I'm a fintech edtech entrepreneur, and basically all I do all day long is to teach women in particular about how to get a grip on their money. And the idea of SmartPurse has basically come about because about 2 years ago, and throughout all of my work in the bank, I kind of discovered that there wasn't really a well-crafted, trusted space where we as women could come together to discuss about money, as well as to ask all of our questions without really feeling stupid, and to kind of get information that would help us to be better with money. And so the conclusion from all of that was very simple, which was basically, well, let's create that space. And that's how you can imagine SmartPurse. This is what it does. So we teach women about financial education, how financial products work, what they do, etc. All of that in a very impartial way. So we are not bound to any investment provider. We convene conversations for women around the subject of money. So larger forums where all of you can come together and really we can we can talk about how we feel, what our money questions are, what is on top of our mind, what the money worries are. And ultimately, we provide a couple of guides, tips, and tricks, what you can do with your money. And all of that is packaged into a digital platform, but also in a whole array of courses and talks like this one here today.
Perfect. Well, that leads us on pretty nicely, I think, to talking about financial fitness, how to get all of your affairs in order and make it a bit more fun than it being a chore. So I think I'm going to hand over to you to run through the workshop and start off with financial fitness. So shall I hop out in a second? And yeah, hand over to you, Olga.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just one question, how will people ask questions if they have any? Because in the end, it will be as good as all of everybody's questions are, not necessarily me just talking to a camera like I sit
It's
here.
a very good point. So in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube, you can ask your questions there and we'll see them pop up as we go through. So we can either answer them as we go or we can do a Q&A at the end to sort of see what questions come up. But don't be shy because this is your session, everybody. So if you've got questions, you've got an amazing expert here. So pick her brains and ask them in real time.
Alrighty, so that being clarified, I'm going to try now this technical challenge to share my screen. As we were fiddling around with this for quite a while.
We had a few technical challenges, didn't we, before we went live?
Yeah, absolutely, but at least
the beauty, the joy of tech.
So
there we go.
I hope that you all can see this, and it is called Get a Grip on Your Money. And for the bigger part of the next 15 minutes, I'm going to take you through a couple of pointers that predominantly come from what I have learned exchanging with women around the subject of money. So we're going to touch on your money mindset because this is something that is very important, and where our money mindset thoughts and beliefs are being formed and shaped. Then a bigger part will be spent around how to talk about money, how to ask for what you deserve and actually get what you deserve. I'm going to touch on kind of the mantra of why saving will not necessarily make you rich. And even if being rich shouldn't be the objective, why investing is an equally good idea as saving. We're going to close on some money essentials, some takeaways, very simple tips, as well as on some things around how to get and how to stay financially fit. So let me dive into this around your money mindset. And for everybody who is watching, think a little bit about what is your belief when our money mindset actually starts to be formed. Well, just give it a thought, right? And take a wild guess for yourself. And if you are looking this live, type in a comment in the chat if you feel so doing. At what age is our money mindset being formed? Well, research studies have shown that it is as early at the age of 5 to 7. So when you are thinking about what your own feelings about money are, it is a very good practice to actually start to think about what have my parents told me about money? How has money been discussed in our house, in our family? Because that might have shaped and formed many of your money beliefs that you carry with you up to today. Now, for women, our money mindset is not only shaped by what we learn from our parents, it is also very much shaped by society, by history, and by the complexity of our female life. And that is basically what I would love to unpack for you a little bit. If we go very, very, very much back in history, right, to old Egypt, mind you, women were at equal par to men. They could own land, they could start a business, they had money in their own rights. Now, what has happened ever since? Well, ever since in history, a concept got implemented in the 1100s in the UK, for instance, that looked at women and men in a marriage as one economic entity. And in that economic entity, all in a sudden, the woman could no longer own land or have a business or have money in her own rights. And so this history of not being entitled to our own money has been with us for a very, very long time. Actually, down to the very recent, I would say, history. 1975 in the UK is where women could open their own bank account. Right? In the country that I currently sit in, which is Switzerland, it's 1976. So for those of you who are young, they will probably say, oh my God, she is really old, talking to us 40 years. Or a little bit more than 40 years is already a long time. But mind you, knowing this is that history has taught us and society has partially taught us that money might not be something that we are entitled to, that money might be something that is dirty to speak about, that says something that we should be hesitant about. And so we do carry subconsciously these money thoughts with us as well as women. And, I look very deeply, and as I work with women right across the globe on what money is for them, I wanted to share with you, right? I pulled forward a poll. This was being answered by men and women, kind of what money is for you, and everybody defines that differently. And you see here that for many people, roughly 3/4, 71%, money is actually something that carries freedom or independence. But also for many people, it is something that remains to be a constant worry. And when you then would take a gender split on these statistics, so looking at exactly the same question asked to women, what has come out was that, the worry about money has been about 4 percentage points higher when only women answered that question. So if you worry about money, or if you feel that that is something that you feel uncomfortable talking about, just know here on this Zoom and call that you are certainly not alone. It's how many women feel. We then also ask women, what describes your relationship with money? Right? And 4 answers were possible. And I think just to point to you out two things, only 4% said it's actually an easy relationship. 63% said it is rather complicated. So again, here, you are not alone if this is not an easy subject to get to terms with. That said, it might not be easy, but it is certainly possible. Many women have told us, well, it's a subject that is very boring, or I don't have the time to deal with all of this financial fitness stuff, or I actually feel ashamed because I feel that I don't know enough, right? Even though many women do know a lot about money, it's just a feeling you carry with yourself that you don't know enough to do something with it. Many women have also told us, oh, I don't know if I can trust this solution or if I can trust this person. So there are many barriers in our money mindset and our money thinking that basically prevent us women to put our money to good use. The picture that this produces is actually this one. And I know this is not a pretty picture. Let me explain to you that model. Right, this is a model we did when I was still working in a bank. And you see here a guy, an illustrative Joe, and a lady, illustrative Jane, and they both start incredibly well off with 1 million of whatever currency, be it pounds. You see, they buy a house and then basically go through life. And in comparison to illustrative Joe, Jane has the following things which provoke this unfortunate picture for her. She has a gender pay gap of 10%, which is not that big. She takes 1 year out of work, only 1 year. She returns to work 70%, so part-time, but 70% still is a lot of work. So she is not somebody who would, stay at home for a prolonged period for whatever reason. And she saves only. So her money doesn't work for her. Her money basically sits on a saving account, and in this model realizes 1% of return. In the case of Joe, you will say, he is a bullish trader. He is a guy that's constantly on the markets. No, he is not. He actually makes only 3%, and you still see the big difference that this makes. And the fifth thing that Jane has is she lives on average 5 years longer than Joe does. So her money has to last longer. So being subject to such an unfortunate picture actually is the reality of many, many women. It has been proven in numerous statistics. This is just one picture. Now, the hope here is, and I will show that to you later on, that investing can help to improve this picture significantly, even if all other factors remain unchanged. Where do women lose the most money across a lifetime? Well, number one is negotiating pay. And we're going to spend the next chapter talking about this. Number two, and that is not to put a price tag on anybody's children or on anybody's travel, it's just a pitfall of part-time work, because when you work part-time, you have, of course, less salary coming in, but you also have, with that, less opportunity to make your money grow, and substantially less pension as a consequence of that when you are older. And finally, I already touched on that, saving only. Well, let's unpack these three. Talking about money, I already mentioned it, starts very, very early, where we basically, or many girls are being taught that, talking about money is not something that is ladylike or that we are supposed to do. And I don't know if you knew that, but actually there is research that suggests that even little girls receive less pocket money than little boys of the same age group do. Right? So we're not only talking about a gender pay gap, we are talking about a gender pocket money gap as well. So talking about money in some statistics proves to be difficult, especially when you enter the workforce. Here, a university has investigated that only 7% of their female students negotiated their first pay, which means 93% didn't even negotiate. They just took whatever was offered to them. And you see in the area of entrepreneurship, I think many of you might be aware of these statistics. They tended to vary, whether women-funded startups receive 3%, or now it's 2.3% of all the venture capital that is out there. And especially in the UK, what makes me personally very hopeful is that a lot of good initiatives are being put forward to change that, right? That female-owned, female-led businesses finally receive access to capital. So that is something that makes me super hopeful. And I think, a whole movement has started with the Alison Rose review, and the whole committee and council has been put together. So I think a lot of movement on that front. But negotiating pay is not something that comes very naturally to us. Now, research has also shown that women do negotiate differently. We are more willing to compromise. That doesn't mean that we are worse negotiators. It's just that we are not only after the monetary factor. So when a woman negotiates her first pay or any form of salary, actually she will take also other factors into account that might be not monetary, such as, does the employer provide good childcare, such as, is there flexibility with the working hours, such as, is there sufficient security? And basically these compromises, or this broader view than just looking at the monetary, also might lead to being, ready to accept a lower pay in exchange for some other benefits, right? So we just have to be aware that there are also other things that matter to us than just the sheer figure. There also is research, and I find this very, very interesting, and I hope you do too, that women do not only negotiate differently, we are also perceived differently. And one research study, or actually a whole psychological model, actually has outlined that, and this sounds gloomy, right? But it is actually reality, that the woman sits kind of in a dilemma. Either we are perceived as warm and kind and helpful, but not necessarily very competent, or we are the tough negotiators, and in that sense, we might be perceived as very competent, but very cold and bold. And therefore, as you are now aware that this dilemma exists, what are good ways to overcome that? Well, number one is to be aware. Number two, no, it shouldn't stop you from making a good ask. You should still make a really good ask. But generating some form of proximity when you negotiate, showing yourself understandable of the other person's situation, trying to display warmth. And now probably many people will laugh at me and will say she's totally crazy, but warmth also can be displayed with clothing and with your overall appearance, can actually help this challenge, right? You still then can make a very firm and very clear ask, but certainly what doesn't help is just to push in and say, I want this, and having no good rationalization. So be aware that there is a competency warmth dilemma that leads to the fact that women are perceived differently in negotiations, but there also are ways how we can overcome that, now that you know this. So what are some tips to negotiate well? Well, number one is really good preparation. Understanding the statistics, knowing or trying to imagine how the conversation will go down, having a clear ask, but even simple things such as rehearsing the conversations and potentially different scenarios, how it could go. Yeah, I know it sounds funny, but actually it does help. So I, for instance, myself do rehearse certain conversations just to get a feeling and also to kind of beef up my own self-esteem. It's something that can be very natural to do. Number two is to have a clear goal and to understand your boundaries, right? Know what you are asking for and substantiate that with data if you can. And that could be as simple as, looking on Glassdoor or on any salary comparison tool, what a similar position like yours might be, paid or receive in terms of pay. But it also can be something as simple as having an achievement journal and listing out the things that you have done for your employer. And finally, it is very important, especially if you negotiate new positions or new deals, to be aware of your boundaries, right? And to stick to them. And sometimes this can be incredibly tough because, yes, there might be the danger that you lose the deal or you lose the business. But if you are clear about your boundaries, it allows you to be firm. And negotiating well does assume or does need to take a certain level of risk. Well, calculated risk, of course. And so figuring that out in advance might be really good practice. My third tip is facts before emotions, right? Let the facts speak, and sometimes also let it sit and say, well, this is what I have done, and pause and wait what the other person has to say. If you speak with facts, emotions will have less room, and it also will help you to display more calm. My fourth tip is to be persistent. Sometimes a no is not a finite no. It also can be a maybe. And if you do get a no, dare to ask why, and dare to ask what would you need to do in order to get a yes the next time. Come back, be persistent. is important, right? Research shows that sometimes negotiations takes 3 to 4 to 5 attempts until they are successful. So if you give up on the first no and get discouraged, you actually might lose out for yourself. Going back is completely natural and completely normal. And finally, my final tip around talking about money is just do it. Make the ask. You've seen it before in the statistics, right? 93% of students didn't negotiate. I think you have to find the courage to make a firm ask. So I am looking forward to all of your questions around the subject of negotiating well. And let me move on to kind of the third topic here around why saving won't make you rich. Well, you saw it before on this funny curve that I showed where the poor Jane lands in old age poverty. And part of it has to do with the fact that the female life is very complicated. I mean, everybody's life is complicated, but you can, from a financial perspective, look at our lives in 6 distinct stages. And this is Ensuring Women's Futures, who has done a really good piece of research around that. And you see the 6 stages listed here, right? And each one of these stages, from entering the workforce to potentially becoming a mother, to opening a business, to retiring, if such a thing even exists for many of us in the future, requires careful financial planning. And the secret to that is to try to plan in advance rather than starting to plan when you are already in it, right? Yes, it is true that women in the UK will be 5 times poorer at the age of retirement. This has partially to do with the gender pay gap. This has partially to do with us working maybe in lower paid jobs, but it also has partially to do with lower incomes. And so we do need to make the money that we have work very hard for us. And this is where investing comes in. If you have money on a saving account today, it gets kind of eaten away from 2 sides. Number one is inflation will be nagging at this money consistently, right? And it's almost like a cancer. I call inflation being a cancer because you do not realize and it kind of eats away at it. And at the same time, on the saving account, at this very point in time, your money has no chance to grow because the interest rates are so low, non-existent, or even in certain cases negative. So I promised to you to reveal that with this picture, right? You remember the before picture here is the Jane and Joe. And in the with return of 3% picture, which looks much, much better for Jane, the only thing that has changed is that she invests her money. She starts to invest her money and she makes an average return of 3%. And you see how over a lifetime, her financial situation, just with that simple measure, actually can improve. Now you will tell me and say, Olga, do I need a lot of money to invest? The answer is no. With modern tools, with digital tools, each and every one of us can invest. With micro investing tools that, for instance, help you to round up when you spend money. You even can start to invest when you are spending money on something you like. So digitization and new financial products have led to an enormous choice for us that you can start investing with as little as, £1. So I really encourage each and every one of you to take advantage of these tools, and maybe we can discuss that during the Q&A, what the recommendations are. So to wrap things up, my personal money essentials for every woman are the following. First and utmost, I think you need to kind of have a good look at where your money is going and what it is doing. And the budget will help you to do that. Mind you, a budget is a planning tool, not necessarily a police officer that will tell you, yeah, you shouldn't have bought this or you shouldn't have bought that. But look at it as a planning tool and having an understanding where your money is going and what it is doing all day might be a really good practice. In my financial seminars, when women go through the budget, many of them actually detect some hidden money wasters, be it unwanted subscriptions, be it unwanted purchase behavior, be it that they detect, oh my God, I spent my money on this, I wasn't even aware. So having a budget and tracking your spendings is part of good money hygiene. The second thing that every woman should have is a safety pot for emergencies. And that is really a safety pot is money that you put aside that is there for you when you need it. And when you need it in an emergency, you want that money to be available to you and to be available to you immediately. And therefore, it is really good, regardless how small the safety pot might be, just to have a tiny safety pot. And if you feel, oh my God, I can't put a safety pot aside just this very moment because my situation due to the pandemic has been very harsh, start with very, very small amounts, right? Even that is possible. If you were to put £1 a week or £1 a day over time, it will actually help you to build up a safety pot. My third money essential for every woman is to know what your value and your worth is and to be respectful towards yourself when you negotiate deals, businesses, contracts, or even pay. The fourth one is having a good retirement hygiene. So in the UK, of course, you might have different retirement pots. Many people don't even know where they have their retirement money. Having good hygiene and being aware how much you need for retirement and putting money aside for it regularly is very important. And finally, when you look at investment number 5, invest your money, at least the money that you need for the long term. And to summarize my tips here, I just think money hygiene should be as natural as go and count steps, or as natural as having some form of order and organization in your closet. Look at it this way, you can't dress well if your closet is an absolute mess because you can't find the things. The same thing applies to money, right? So what can you do to get financially fit? Very easy. First and utmost thing is it starts with education. Okay, and education doesn't necessarily need to be a giant money course. It also can be as easy as starting to reading finance blogs or grab a book or whatever, but start to educate yourself, because once you educate yourself, you also understand your options better. Number 2, when you work with financial services providers, ask lots of questions. There are no stupid questions around the subject of money. Really, they aren't. And by the way, nobody knows everything about money. Even I don't know everything about money. So ask until you understand and it is clear to you what the product does or what the solution does. Ask a lot of questions. Take action for your retirement. We already touched on that. The fifth thing is when you invest, certainly women's money has the power to change the world, right? 8 out of 10 purchasing decisions globally are influenced by us as women, in the same way as we are generating and growing our money at accelerated rates. Obviously, that money can have meaning. And there is research that suggests that, investing your pension money sustainably can have a multiple times impact than becoming a vegan or stopping using an airplane. So what your money does and how it is invested actually can do a lot of good for the planet. And my final kind of wish to all of you listening would be inspire other women. Pass your money confidence forward to other women, because we still have a long way to go. And the more of us know that this is not a subject that is difficult, the bigger the impact of us will be, and the sooner we will move forward towards a gender equal, sustainable future that I hope we all want. So that was basically my humble presentation. If anyone wants to stay in touch and get more money tips, I'm sure we can distribute this deck. Otherwise, follow me on LinkedIn. And I am coming back to hear all of the questions.
Thank you, Olga. That was amazing. And it sounds very simple when you say it like that, but I know lots and lots of people have all sorts of worries and issues around money. So I think you've made it a lot more straightforward for them. Thank you for that. And very Sistr to finish as well on the end with inspire other women, because you're exactly right. If we all talk about it and make it normal, it's no longer going to be frightening for everybody. So I think that was a wicked presentation. Thank you. We've got some questions coming in, and everyone that's listening, please ask questions now. I think there's a lot of interest around micro investing. We've got Yael saying that she's in Israel and is not sure if they have micro investing. But how do people generally get involved with it? Is there any advice that you can give on how to get started?
So absolutely, to get started, I mean, please excuse me. And whether it is called in every country micro investing, I wouldn't know, but basically they are very simple ways. So a very easy way is to start buying so-called exchange trade fund shares, right? The so-called ETFs, because ETF has been invented as an investment vehicle that is very easy and you require very little money to actually start. And if you don't know where to start because you are completely new to this, there always can't be anything wrong with a world ETF, right? So different issuers have different world ETFs, this broad-based ETF fund, and it can get you going. Now, on the subject of micro investing, I mean, I am familiar with the UK solutions. Mind you, if you are in Israel, you don't have it. Here in Switzerland, we don't have it either. But let me explain you how it works. Basically, you can set in a digital tool that you say, whenever I buy something and I spend X amount of pounds on it, round up to the next £1, to the next £5, to the next £10. And this money then can land on a saving account or can go directly into an investment. In most cases, it is an exchange trade funds that it goes to. So Moneybox, for instance, or Plum in the UK are tools that provide these functions. So what I would recommend, if you are not from the UK, check whether your e-banking provider provides such a roundup function and whether you could do something else with the money than just keeping it on a saving account. Okay, this could be really good practice. For instance, here in Switzerland, I detected that actually many providers do have a roundup function. They just don't communicate it to people. So useful feature.
Very helpful.
Yeah, but you have to look for it. So that is the second way. I mean, the third way is just save up a little bit of money, okay? Doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit, and then go and use one of the so-called robo-advisors or robotic tools in order to create a small portfolio, right? That is useful if you have a little bit more than let's say 10 or 20 pounds, right? Because most of them, even though many of them start at £1 or even £500, to have a full portfolio only makes sense also from a pricing standpoint when you have a little bit of money to invest. So these are three very simple ways how you can get started. Buy ETFs yourself, go with this roundup thing, save a little bit and then go with a robo, right? So there really are no excuses. I think the important thing is that you start somewhere, right? Even if it is with very small amounts, for two reasons. Number one, when it comes to money, discipline and time is your friend, okay? Over time, being disciplined gets you further than just waiting for the next big thing. Number two, if you start even with very small amounts, be it with a digital app or whatever it is, you do make the experience. And through the experience you learn and your confidence increases. And as your confidence increases, your knowledge and curiosity will increase, right? And as your knowledge and curiosity increases, obviously you move forward to more sophisticated solutions and you start to try out new things. To give you an example, right, I'm a woman that's been teaching so many people about finance for the bigger part of 8 years now. And I am not a bullish investor myself. It's not my nature, okay? And as I started to try out different things, always with very small amounts to get the experience, I saw myself advancing to kind of also riskier things, but then they don't feel risky because I understand them better, right? So my approach to all of you really is start with these small amounts, regardless with what you start with, it can't be wrong.
And is there any value, for example, for looking at companies that you like the look of, for example, if you don't know anything, that might be a way to start where you think, okay, well, I know this company, I know a bit about them, I'll put some money in there and then see what happens. And it gets your curiosity, like you said, to track it and see what goes up and down. Is that a way to do it? Would you say, or?
It can be a way to do it. You just have to be aware. I certainly wouldn't do that with my retirement money, right?
Not the high risky stuff.
We all know that, startups can fail. Actually, 9 out of 10 fail, right? And there is a whole theory around so-called angel investing. It might take you quite a while until you see some benefits from that money, right? And it can be quite risky. So that said, it is not impossible, but it is nothing that I would recommend as a starting point for your retirement fund. Yeah.
Okay. Just for the practice fund, maybe. So we've got a bit of chat going on about fees and what the standard fees are for micro investing, and how do you get to understand how much you're going to pay versus how much you're putting in, and where the balance is when it makes sense to do that.
Oh my God. Okay. So the practice of financial services is absolutely something that can drive you to despair. Okay. It drives many people to despair. And I actually have a whole video around pricing because it is complicated. Why is it complicated? For two reasons. Number one, they are all kinds of different pricing schemes, right? So it's very hard to depict what you are actually paying. Number two, many of the prices are dependent on the amount of money that you are investing. So you actually receive the price in percentage points rather than getting an actual
money
figure.
Points. Yeah.
Exactly. So how to get on about this? Unfortunately, there is no magic wand for that than doing the legwork and doing two things. One is read what the price is, and number two, read the fine print. Okay. If you come across a provider, because there are many out there now that say it's an all-in fee or it's a full package fee, always read the fine print, okay, to see what is included and most importantly what is not included in this package fee. And then my third tip is go and do the calculation, and I'm very happy we have a calculator for that. If you guys want to have it, just drop a line. Do the calculation with your real investment amount, okay, not just with the percentage points. And that will give you some form of a picture so that you know what you are actually paying. Is it tedious? Yes, it is. Is it time consuming? Yes, it is. No waffling around that. Is it worth it in the end? Because even the differences, yes, it is. Sorry for not having anything better here.
Well, it's part of it. And then once you've done it, though, like you said, you get familiar with things, and then you can see the patterns, like, oh, I know what this means now. So it's a lot quicker to get through, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, Liz has asked, what platforms can she use to find like the ETF investments, for example? Are there any big ones that you can mention?
Okay,
it's a good starting point.
If you want to buy, Liz, if you want to buy ETFs yourself, you need two things, right? You need to know what ETF you want to buy, and usually you will need some form of a brokerage account or a trading account. And that trading account you can get either from a bank or from an online provider. So you will need to search for two things. And again, there I do recommend to do price comparison. So for instance, in the UK, there is like a brokerfinder.com where you can look up all the different prices and comparisons of the different brokers. Same there is for ETFs. So for instance, just ETF.com is a very big platform where you can search for all kinds of ETFs and filter them by best performance, sustainability, thing, and whatever have you, and you even can compile a shopping list. So using kind of these finder platforms, certainly they come for free, right? That is what they do. You don't need to open any accounts. That can give you a really good starting point. For those of you who are looking for financial products and price comparison and are from the UK, money saving expert Martin Lewis has a lot of intelligence around this as well.
Okay, thank you, Olga. Negotiating. That was a really, really good section. And I think there was a comment whilst you were speaking about how Mary had said that she'd gone in talking about her qualifications and actually the employer had said no. You said about persistence and going in again, but is there any tip you have for kind of mindset and not feeling defeated by that first no, and sort of holding your head up high still, or it's just a case of just gritting your teeth and getting in there?
Okay. I think you should never get defeated when you get a no. Okay. Because if you look at research, it is a very common thing. So I wouldn't take it personally first and utmost, which is very hard, right? Because these conversations ask you to throw yourself in kind of as a person with your achievements, and then getting a no might be a very personal affair.
It stings, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you go like, oh my God, it's me who has done something wrong. No, it's not. Ask why you're getting a no. Okay, it's your right to understand. Sometimes it is a matter of the system. Maybe the timing is not right. Maybe the company needs to save money. Maybe they would have expected you to deliver something else. Can also be, right? Maybe they are going with underneath the surface through a budget cut. So I would always try to ask why you are getting a no and what you need to do in order to get a yes next time. And again, sometimes it is that your boss can't bring it forward. Remember, I've been a woman in the corporate world for a very long time. And yes, there were situations where I had to say no to somebody. It had nothing to do with the person. It was wrong timing or external circumstances, or the budgets were not there. So having an understanding how these things come together can help you. I certainly wouldn't take it personally. By no means take it personally, and ask, and then go again. Right? And yes, you might feel hurt, you might feel wounded after the discussion. We all would, and we all are. Getting a no is never nice. Then you have to do what one of my really good friends and sister in Austria told me. Said, you know what? The next day you're gonna get up, you put your crown right, and off you walk around, princess. Right? So that's the mindset that you have to adopt.
Strut. That's what you need to do. Amazing. Thank you, Olga. Does anyone else have any more questions? Because I think otherwise that would probably be a very, very good place to leave it, with straightening your crown, holding your head up high, and getting into your financial fitness. Anyone? Perfect. Okay, I think we'll end it there. Thank you everyone for coming. I should also say thank you very much to Olga, obviously, and also thanks to our sponsors, Gibson's Goodology, because they help us put on these events. So they are a health and wellness brand of drinks. They are delicious, and I'll send out information on them and all of Olga's contact details after this as well, so you can get in touch and ask her. Oh, we've got a question here from Liz Kipp. How do we link up in case? Yeah. Perfect. I will send those details out for you so we can all link up. So thank you very much, Olga, for giving us this time this morning. We've all got a bit of oomph and some spring in our step now for our financial well-being. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.